And welcome back to Hannity. While Senator Harry Reid says the battle against rancher Cliven Bundy is not over, questions are being raised about his connection to this entire controversy, especially when it comes to this man, Neil Cornsey. Now, he's a former longtime Reid aide who has been leading the Bureau of Land Management as its principal deputy director since March of 2013. And last week, as the feds surrounded the Bundy ranch, surprise, surprise, he was confirmed and then sworn in as the BLM director. Joining me now with much more on the situation and Reid's close ties to the most powerful, well, guy at the BLM, Washington Times reporter Valerie Richardson. Valerie, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Sean.
All right. A lot of things have been brought up regarding these ties. Let's go through it. He worked for Harry Reid, worked at the Bureau of Land Management, now became its director. Tell us what you know.
Yeah, he was with Harry Reid's office for 8 years, and I should point out he's only 35 years old, so the bulk of his career was spent on Harry Reid's staff. He went to the BLM 3 years ago, immediately became kind of a top person there. He was essentially running the Bureau since last March, as you point out, and he was confirmed by the Senate committee in December. And I will say that there were some questions raised at that time. He is only 35 years old. He hasn't had a long land management career. And you had some Republicans raising eyebrows, saying, is this guy really experienced enough? Your normal BLM director is a guy who has been in land management for 20, 30 years, a grizzled veteran, a career guy. And this guy, if he's a career guy of anybody, it's Senator Harry Reid's office.
What about this 2013 March of 2014 photo breaking new ground for the solar farm, which is about 35 miles away from the Bundy Ranch? Harry Reid is out there shoveling himself. Didn't they have a problem there with the desert tortoise, which supposedly all of this was predicated on, that issue in the very beginning?
Well, that is the question that's being asked right now. These solar projects, there's been 2 of them that they've been looking at in the vicinity of the ranch. Now, one's about 35 miles away, one's about 100 miles away. They're not right on top of the Bundy Ranch, but the Bundy Ranch, obviously, they were asked or told basically to cut back their cattle herd in response to the desert tortoise, and yet you do have these projects going out on other places in Nevada that aren't that far away, and people would like to know why you have one situation where it's okay to have development and another where it's not.
Well, that's the thing, because it became about the desert tortoise, and then all of a sudden the whole argument shifted from the Bureau of Land Management. It seems that to me that they got angry that Cliven Bundy wasn't compliant the way they wanted him to be. That's my take on it. But Valerie, thank you. Appreciate it. Now, my next guest says the battle between the feds and the Bundy family represents a, quote, line in the sand for Americans who've had enough of big government. Here to explain exactly what he means by that is Fox News senior analyst, our friend Judge Andrew Napolitano is with us. Judge, this issue is bringing a lot of emotion to the table here. Does it have to do with the NSA, the IRS, the lies about Benghazi, spying on Americans? Lies about health care? Is this now accumulating? A culmination, if you will?
That's a very interesting observation, Sean, and one for which there is much support, that this is becoming the last straw, not only with this administration in particular, but with big government in general. It's an in-your-face, overly aggressive, overly harsh, unnecessary enforcement of a federal court order using militaristic tactics that are not necessary in modern society in order to enforce. And because of people like you and other colleagues of ours here at Fox and even elsewhere, the American public is rallying against the federal government. Ordinarily, Sean, the federal government enforcing a court order doesn't make the newspapers at all. This is front page, top of the fold because of these aggressive techniques and the resistance that it's being met with.
Who ever heard of 200 agents surrounding a guy's ranch and stealing his cows and snipers hanging out on the outside perimeter of this guy's ranch? We don't even secure our border anywhere near this way. And I think people see it as very heavy-handed, regardless of who's right in the dispute or not. I don't even think that's an issue at this point. It's the tactics and how they're doing it. Do you believe this sheriff who says that his sources are saying that they would engage in a late-night, early-morning raid of this ranch? Do you think that had happened?
I personally know the sheriff to whom you're referring, and I know him to be a person of the highest intellectual honesty. He also has the highest fidelity to the Constitution, as do the deputies who work for him and who used to work for him. And so I do believe that the most dangerous part of this is yet to come. Look, the federal government has a legitimate, valid court order, but they don't have to enforce it by bringing in militaristic techniques. They don't have to enforce it by stealing his private property. They can enforce it by filing a document in a courthouse, which will enable them to collect the money to which they're entitled when he dies or when his property otherwise passes to somebody else, and they know that.
And they know, and the person of which you're speaking, Richard Mack, the former sheriff of Graham County, Arizona, said, I don't think it'd be possible to launch a raid without violence. I tend to agree with him based on the level where people's emotions are right now. Judge, do you foresee the potential of an Elian Gonzalez-style raid here?
Well, I hope not, Sean, because the federal government's resources are almost literally without limit. And they usually win these things, and they usually end up with an innocent person being kidnapped, like Elian Gonzalez, or with innocent people being killed, like at Waco, Texas. And we don't want any of that to happen.
No, I think you have actually hit the nail on the head. They should go to a court, get an injunction. They should seize maybe assets later if in fact the ruling stands. And I'm not even sure over time if it'll stand. But Judge, thank you. As always, appreciate it.
Pleasure, Sean.
All right, here in studio with the other side of this, Fox News contributor, our friend Tamara Holder. I've got to believe this might be something we actually agree on, the heavy-handed tactics here against this ranch.